Why is the eThekwini Municipality reusing burial sites? Does the eThekwini Municipality respect affected families' constitutional rights? Is the one body, one grave concept realistically possible? And what alternatives do municipalities have to meet the demand for burial land? What time is it? It is question time. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mpho Tsedu. A legal battle is looming between the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities and KwaZulu-Natal Province's eThekwini Municipality. This after the Commission received complaints from people who found strangers buried in the graves belonging to their families without their knowledge. Other incidents include graves being half dug in preparation for someone else's burial and tombstones being erected, tampered with or replaced with those of unrelated people. In protection of the family's religious and cultural rights, the Commission has warned that it will approach the courts unless the government ensures that this practice is stopped with immediate effect. But is the recycling of graves unique to the eThekwini Municipality? A reminder that this is a live program. Therefore, you can give us a call. The number to dial is 089-110-4210, 889-110, or 089-110-4210. My guest today, Metogo Mkwana, who is the chairperson of the Commission for Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural and Linguistic Communities. In our Durban studios, we have Tembingos Mapoloba, is the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture of eThekwini Municipality. Let me welcome you both to Question Time today. Your words, ma'am, are not the very warmest of them all. I'm sure this just reflects how you feel about this whole matter. You're saying, how come this Midupi never comes together? You were complaining about the fact that graves were tampered with. We'll come to Midupi in a second. Let's start in eThekwini. You're saying the poor are not being respected here.
That is our standpoint. We say that because people who don't have tombstones are the ones who are being recycled. When you have to make choices between buying a tombstone or sending your children to school, the choices are very clear. Poor people will choose the schools and the food and everything else for their children. But we're saying, if this were to be done across the board, whether you've got a 2-meter high tombstone, and if it were to be pulled down, and then recycling wouldn't be just for poor people, it would be an equitable system. There's inequality in it, in that mostly it's poor people. So are you saying that the eThekwini municipalities is targeting poor people? They are targeting poor people. We've had several meetings with them over the years. This is not a new issue. We've raised it with them for about 3 years now. We've got tons and tons of complaints because people feel very strongly about it. It's not as if it's us. You know, when you've sat with families, when you've sat with people who have found somebody else in the grave of their parents or their loved ones, they are very traumatized.
Okay. Mapoloba, it would appear that you are being inconsiderate if what the chairperson has said is anything to go by.
Unfortunately, I always find the chairperson of the commission to have the propensity of making pronouncements without getting familiar with the actual situation on the ground. All it would have taken for her was to have a direct meeting with us and also visit our facilities. She would have known, for instance, that almost all our cemeteries, 65 of them that we have, almost 98% of them are covered by tombstones. And that's an issue that we addressed almost about 8 years ago when we tried to discourage what you would call poor people not to invest a lot of money on the burials, so that they will know that there is a day after the burial and use the money for the living. So it is untrue, therefore, that this seat is targeting the poor. It was the very aim of our conference that to say to them, don't buy tombstones. But then secondly, it was more of a rational decision for us when we made this decision, which I must say we have since reversed towards the end of last year. And the reason why we took it was because of the very situation of the shortage of burial space that we as a city are facing. It was one of the ways, a creative way of addressing that problem without tampering with what people believe in to be their rights and also religious, cultural and religious rights.
But now, fortunately, Mam Kaluva is here. She says that you are recycling those that don't have money to put up tombstones. Is that true?
That's not true. That is why I'm saying I have a problem with her. If, for instance, I were to detail the situation to you, we have 65 cemeteries here in Durban, and they give us a total of 500,000 grave sites. But in our custody, we have about 1.4 remains, which will then tell you that at least on average in each grave site, there's about 3 or so people. And this is not a new practice. If I were to give you an example and use the situation of His Majesty the King, who asked us some few years ago to look for his mother that we located in one of the cemeteries in Chesterville, we discovered, having been buried in 1950, that in actual fact there were 3 people that shared a grave with her. So that was way back in 1950, about 55 years or so now. Okay. So that you will then see this is not a new practice. And if that was not done, that would have meant that the city will be reduced to one very big cemetery. So we need to be sensitive, therefore, about the creative ways of dealing with the shortage of burial space. And for us, the reuse of grave sites, which is part of the law, by the way. The KZN was the only province up until 2013 that had a law dealing with the regulation and provision of burial services. So the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act of 1996 does allow for the reusage of grave sites.
Okay. I want us to take a quick break. When we return, though, I would like you to tell us if that is the case, then why are people complaining that they are finding strangers tampering with their graves? Or, well, not their graves, but graves of their beloved. And why, such discrepancies are being allowed to happen, but only after the break. This question time, we're taking a quick break. When we return, we'll be taking your calls. 08911042110. 08911042110 is the number to dial. This question time.
That goal was outstanding.
Made so much dust that I couldn't see, and I hit a stone, and we had a puncture.
Catch all these and more every day on Sports Live at 8:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. I guess today Togo Mgwanazi Kaluva is the chairperson of the Commission for Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural and Linguistic Communities. And from our Durban studios, Tembikos Ngobo is the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture of eThekwini Municipalities. Now, Mapoloba, why are we having a situation where strangers are meeting at one grave?
The chairperson says they have lots of complaints. we don't have complaints, because I will tell you, there is a process that proceeds from the premise of the respect for the dignity of those who have passed on, and also for those who are left behind, the families. The way the process works is that when you book a gravesite with us, part of the money goes towards the lease of the grave, which takes 10 years. So within that 10-year period, nobody has a right, including ourselves, to tamper with that gravesite. So that after then 10 years, we trace the families, we write to them to say, if you don't renew the lease, your site will be up for the reusage. And those families that we cannot locate, we go to the local newspapers and make advertisements. We understand that, for instance, some of the people who have emigrated and so forth, it is only after we've gone through that process that that gravesite will then be made available for another family to use.
Are these the adverts that you're putting in the classified section?
Yes, indeed, but over and above
reads that, Mapolo?
We do. I must say, we do consider that limitation, and that is why also over and above that we do write them letters, especially to those people that you have their addresses, and also try to trace them.
Okay, hold the thought there. Patrick, you're calling us from Tshwane. Patrick? We seem to be having a problem with Patrick, but the number to dial is 08911042110. 08911042110. Let us hear your views on the matter. You saying you have already contacted the Human Rights Commission?
No, we've contacted eThekwini Municipality.
Okay.
Mr. Ngobo and myself, we know each other very well over the years. From as early as 2012, we've been talking about the same thing.
No, but it doesn't sound like
that
he knows
it's unconstitutional. Oh, he knows me very well. We've told them it's unconstitutional. We've met with the mayor. We've met with the speaker of eThekwini Municipality. We've raised these issues. When he says there are no complaints, we'll send him complaints. We'll bring complainants to their offices, outside, of course, because there are too many to fit inside. If he's looking for an onslaught, then he must say so. But what we are saying is that classified ads, who reads classified ads? And when we are poor, are you likely to buy a newspaper? You're not likely to buy a newspaper. Even the rich ones are not likely to read the classified ads. So at the end of the day, Mr. Ngobo mustn't say, no, they're not recycling. And this is not about the size of the tombstones. This is about bodies inside the grave. Once you have Mkize, Nomkwanas in one grave, you have a problem. It's a cultural dynamic, it's a religious dynamic, and you have abused the constitutional rights of those people. It's untenable, it's unacceptable, and justifying it is not acceptable.
All right, it has happened. What are you going to do?
We are saying to the municipality they must stop and stop urgently. If they continue, we've been asked by Salka that they would like to talk to the municipality. I said to them, maybe they'll hear you. They haven't heard us. And we've given them 1 month. If 1 month comes and goes and they're still digging out people, we will go to court and ask the court to enforce our recommendations. Because really, in this day and age, we appreciate the fact that there aren't any spaces. If it says it's a land issue, we appreciate that. But all they have to do is to say to families, Mkwana's family, who of your family has passed away, can we then identify a grave for you? Then we will say, okay, Ukoko was buried on this date, this time. Let's go and put Umama there. Okay. But they don't want to do that. They want to just identify graves, put people into whatever bag they put in their bones, and then say, Mkwanas, you'll sleep here with this one. That's what we're objecting to.
Okay.
They need to consult people.
Okay. Bishop, you're calling us from Soweto.
Bishop Soweto, yeah?
Yes.
I think what is happening there in Natal, that I heard, it's very much inhumane. it can only be allowed if maybe a family member is buried in the same grave, but not somebody from another family or who's unknown to the family. I think what the government needs to do is to really look at the unused graves that were bought initially that are not used, maybe for a certain period, to go back to those people and say, are you still going to use this grave or not? And if not, then they can be used for another family or something like that, and the family can be reinvested. But then to bury somebody as if it's copper, I don't think it's correct.
Okay.
And I cannot condone it.
Okay. Thanks very much. Now, Mapoloma, is the city giving away graves to people who are not related to the relatives of the current occupant?
I think the chairperson is again confusing issues. In terms of the law, there is two things. The first one, not in any order of importance, is what you will call exhumation.
Yes.
The exhumation is where you dig up a grave and remove the remains that you may find in that particular site. So the municipality does not have the mandate to do exhumation. Where an exhumation has to be done, you have to apply through the provincial government, who will then give you a right to do that. Then the second one, in terms of the law again, there is something called reuse, or in an everyday language, recycling of grave sites. So that is an act, I am saying, has been in practice, as I gave an example of a gravesite that was occupied by the Queen Mother, which dates back to 1950. So the practice has been going on as far back as that. Secondly, as I explained, when you come to us and use a grave, you have the right of the usage of the grave for 10 years. And after 10 years, we write you a letter and say, your period is about to be up, and if you want to, you are allowed to renew your lease. So in other words, therefore, we give you a first right of refusal, so that if there is a need for you to use that particular grave site, then you can use it. But in instances where we cannot trace the relatives, or where they don't respond, and the period is up, those grave sites then become part of, I will say, the stock for the municipality to then use. So in other words, everyone gets given an option. We trace them, we find them, and where they say we still want to use it, then we allow them to do it.
Okay,
so
Mapolo.
Nothing is forced upon people.
Okay, Mapolo. Now, what happens in the event that indeed the family has not come back to you? What do you do with the bones that you find in that grave?
Again, I will then go back to the distinction between exhumation and reuse.
No. I'm clear on those two.
That's what I'm trying to.
I'm clear on those two, Mapoloma. Let's make progress. I want us to make progress. What do you do with the bones?
The law states the process. It says when you find the remains, when you dig, because you are not exhuming, all that you need to do is to then dig deeper and bury them, so that by the time the next person comes, there is a particular portion of the soil that will separate the person that was originally there and the person that is coming in. And mind you, you are not allowed to do this process in less than 10 years. It has to be 10 years and above. By that period, it is assumed decomposition will have taken place. And that is exactly what happens.
Okay. Babu Nkambinde, you are in Durban. Hello, Nkambinde. Okay, we seem to have lost Nkambinde there. It would appear the law versus cultural beliefs here.
We've stated that. We've said very critically, there is the law from 1996, post-apartheid. It's unacceptable. It's the system they're using. You see, when it says they then take the bones and put whatever remains, needs to go to the bottom. You see, there isn't any untruth in what we're saying. In 10 years' time, they tell you who's dead to renew your tenure When we are dead, you can't pay. If they could see ghosts coming in to pay there, I don't know, how do you rent a grave? And then they say, in 10 years' time, hence is saying, I agree with him. They only recycle graves after 10 years. But who then who's going to pay?
Okay, hold the thought there. Molten, you're in Johannesburg.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead.
Hello? Yeah, I just want to say something. I don't think it's a matter of law or anything. It's not the right thing to bury someone on top of another. So, I mean, let's not go and say it's lawful and all those things. I mean, it's just wrong. It's ethically wrong, and it must just stop.
But they are faced with the reality that they don't have land.
No, there's too much land, and I think the government or anyone must just buy land and maybe get new graves and all that. But then just to go and put someone on top of another person, whether it's lawful or not lawful, I mean, I don't know how they sleep at night after just doing that. I mean, it doesn't matter if that person has been there for 100 years or 200 years or whatever. So it must just stop. It's culturally wrong, religiously wrong. And then, I mean, I'm surprised that is happening now. We black people with our culture and all that being in government.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mapoloba, are you rather faced with a more harsher reality than what people are seeing out there?
That is exactly my problem. As I said, that we respect culture and religion, but the fact of the matter is that there is no land. People will say, because they see open spaces, that you must go and reclaim those for burial purposes. And I must say, the city, about 2 years ago, we invested 150,000 rands, and we engaged professionals to go around the city and identify land that could be available. They came back with only about 2 pieces of land, which I think they totaled together about 32 hectares. And the whole other pieces that they found were not suitable, and I will explain later as to why. When you say the land is not suitable, what does it mean in actual fact?
All right, hold it there. Steve, you're in Cape Town, quickly. Steve? Steve? Okay, we seem to have lost Steve. But let's quickly deal with the Medupi issue. You're saying Medupi will never come all right because it was built on graves?
We're saying people from Medupi, whose people's graves are there, are telling us this story will never end. I'm sure you've heard the president saying he's not sure why this thing never ends. But there are people's bones there.
Are you saying that those graves are the ones that are disturbing construction?
We're saying partly. You see, really, in belief systems, when things happen that you can't explain, why this Medupi thing is not being finished and we all have the lights.
It's a multi-billion rand project.
Yes, we agree with you. It's a multi-billion rand project.
Now it must be stopped because of some bones.
We're not saying so. We're saying first and foremost there are laws that govern this thing that were trashed. So we're going to release the report early in June that will outline exactly what we found went wrong there. Because the rules are very clear. You find someone's skull, you stop and you look at what is happening here. People have skulls in their homes that came out of there. We'll show you everything, we'll prove everything. The Saharan Rights Commission doesn't tell a story that is not there, as Ungobo has said. 10 years' time, you don't pay rent, we put you in a black bag, put you down, put someone on top of you. We've been saying this thing, we can explain it till the cows come home.
Okay.
But it needs to stop.
All right, thank you very much. Mapolo, unfortunately, we have run out of time. That was question time for today. A big thank you to our guests and to you for watching the show. Our email address is questiontime@sabc.co.za. Our Twitter handle @questiontime24. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.